Hello, everybody. Now, this is module 5. And as we remember, we have just finished doing this one. Now, I then say to my clients, oh, I've got another diagram for you, and this is my favorite. However, in fact, let me backtrack a minute. I always say to my clients, I hope you like these diagrams. And they go, and so often you will get the yes. And this is why I do know that drawing these diagrams for our clients, because they then get to keep them, is so important. If any of you are seeing clients over Zoom, and say this to your new practitioners, then get the clients to have pens and paper as well so that they can draw it. Just like you may well have learnt with me on one of these trainings, you have also been drawing the diagrams. Are they perfect? No. Who cares? So what? However, if you have a client in person, then they will get to keep all the diagrams. And that means they have something. And I think this is almost part of why I get such great results and why they want to come back for another session, because they are tangibly holding something. And there must be just something going on in our minds, that they feel as though they have something, and they do go over them. Some people go over them with a fine tooth comb. In fact, they then explain it to other people, and they love that, because when people are teaching something, then you learn it better yourself, and then it goes into them, and then they might even be going, getting more of the change work even when they're at home. So this is why these diagrams are so helpful. So now I say, I'll go back to what I was saying at the beginning. Now I say, this is my favorite diagram. And for all of you, I got this from Beryl Comar. Okay, so thank you, Beryl. Beryl trains it in a completely different way to the way I do. I had to simplify it for myself. And the recording that Beryl has on this, it's on YouTube, and it is actually in the Bunny Talk normal Facebook group that we have. In fact, I could probably put it on here as well. However, I train it this way because it suits the purpose to go with these as well, and especially that first diagram. So the beauty of this is that it really gets the teenagers back on track. So because you say, this is how you start it. So I'm just going to show it first of all, and then we can break it down. Starts at the very beginning of life. The sperm meets the egg, makes a little zygote. And the first thing that is made of the human is, and you can ask, but generally I don't necessarily waste time. I just go, it is the brain. And it is our unconscious bit of our brain, because it is in charge of our bodily functions. It then says, go make a heart, eyes, nose, ears, mouth, teeth, legs, kidneys, spleen, blah, blah, blah. And it's also in charge of our immune system, because when we are ill, we sleep. And when we're first making a baby, we get tired, or mothers get tired. Now, at 22 weeks, baby is fully made. And that is when the next bit of the brain is made. And that is our subconscious mind. And apparently at 22 weeks, that is when the soul joins the baby. Now, if they don't believe in souls, which you found out from there, then you wouldn't say that. If your client is coming to you and you know that they've had a termination or many miscarriages or whatever it has been, and they are, say, feeling guilty, then you would say that is apparently when the soul joins the baby. I have helped multiple people with the guilt from that alone. You can literally hear them, because it's often in person, going, yeah, it's quite profound just by saying that. If I have been drawing the exiles in pain one, this diagram, and they go, oh yeah, I've got one in there from a termination. Sometimes people just share, and there was one person, it was quite a late termination. I made that 22, 24 weeks because I can. And I still heard that same, because I also knew we had a big load of alcohol going on here because of the guilt. Okay. So if I could help in any way, I will. So our subconscious mind is made at 22 weeks, and that is in charge of our senses: sight, sound, hearing, touch, taste, smell. And we know this because that's when we might start talking to our baby, and babies can hear. Hearing is our first sense, and it's actually our last sense to go as well. So senses, and our senses are in charge of our feelings, and our feelings are our emotions, which is energy in motion. And I put that out there because I come back to it in something else that I do. However, senses are our feelings, emotions, because, and I always ask this, so please ask this question, because when you were little and you heard children playing outside, what did you want to do? Most people say, go play. Some people say, hide. Now, you have just learned a lot right then, okay? You can calibrate their emotions there and then, okay? So you may well be dealing with something, an exile in pain, that is bullying, okay? So this is what we're training to our other people, to become really conscious of our clients by asking certain things. Okay, so do make sure that you ask that. You heard it, you saw it, you felt it, you wanted to go play. Yeah. And most people do say that though. And because that, the senses and the feelings, the emotions, that created a state. Now, a state creates a habit. And a habit always has a positive intention. And it's also a protector. And it's also a little bit lazy in that it goes back to that default thing every time. Now, I don't mean lazy like a little sloth. I mean lazy in that you just do your thing. And now you can give an example of what you do. You could also give more examples of this state, the ching, ching, ching of the gambling in Las Vegas, hearing people playing tennis when Wimbledon's on. It just creates a state and people want to do things. Could be for smelling smoke, marijuana, alcohol, anything. Okay. Just so long as you have your client saying, yeah, yeah. So you have to get that across to your practitioners that you're training, that they understand that state. And a state creates a habit, and a habit always has a positive intention, and it's a protector, and it's also a little bit lazy. Lazy, not like a little sloth, but your lazy default thing that you do, because that then becomes your beliefs and your values. Beliefs and values here. Now, that could be, oh, I'm a smoker. I am every morning I get in the car and I go to Starbucks. I get a Dunkin' Donuts. I drink. I have McDonald's every morning. It just becomes their thing that they do. Okay. Now, next bit of the brain is made. You'll become very good at circles, and that is our conscious mind. And then I say, guess how old we are when our conscious mind is made. And I do let them have a little guess. However, I always write it in 5 to 7 years old. Again, everybody, this is a model. I got it from Beryl Comar. Okay, so if you disagree with it, you can go have words with her. Now, and this is when our IQ is made and is 10% of us. As Einstein said, it is our IQ and it is 10% of us. Now, that can only ever go up or down 4%. That is also really important if you are saying this to parents of a teenager or any child who you already know that they have been criticizing, got these expectations, disappointments. So you already know that they have these expectations on their child. Now you're actually saying they've either got it or they haven't. Okay, they may not even have said anything to you yet, but you had this inkling. Now you're saying it again. This is why this bit is so important to say. And you just say, so they either got it or they haven't. It can go up or down 4%. However, there are just some kids that are like really bright, and there are others that are just so much more hands-on and they're brighter in different areas. And you can elaborate more here by saying, there are some kids that are absolute geniuses on the football pitch, soccer pitch. They just know where to get into space. They know the velocity of how to kick that ball, where it's meant to go, the angles that they create. That is pure genius on the football pitch. I have had clients go, oh, and you can hear it going ding, 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 ding. Yeah, my kid is really good at sport. They're captain. That's where their genius is, but they just don't like math homework, but they're doing it at a much more difficult, greater level than anybody else because they know where to be on the pitch. Quite interesting, the change that can happen in a client, in a parent with that. Okay, so do have that one to draw on and train. Okay, now this bit in the middle is 90% of us. I'm going to change my pen. Is 90% of us. That's better. Is 90% of us. And it is our EQ, because these two then become one, the subconscious and conscious. EQ, emotional intelligence. And we say, that is the bit that I am training you on. That's the bit I say to my clients. That's the bit I'm coaching you on, is this. This bit can grow exponentially. That's nice. So so everybody can become more self-aware. Brilliant. Now you've made them realize, oh, great. Okay, so again, train that this bit is 90% of them are EQ. And out here we have willpower. And it is our rational, analytical, critical, comparing, and contrasting part of us. Okay? Because when we were little, we didn't know if somebody was pink, purple, black, white, spotty, stripy. People were people. We're to learn the difference between black and white. And people go, yeah. I go, and that'd be nice. Because it was when we were at school and then we became aware, or we were told it by our parents or at school or other children. We just didn't know. People were people. Everybody played with everybody. Now, I say it's my job to bypass the critical faculty of the conscious mind and go into this bit to create change. And we do that with hypnosis, we do it with shock, and we do it with relaxation. Shock, I say, I don't mean shock therapy. I mean shock as in my best friend, one of our best friends, he died, his twin brother died of drinking and smoking too much, and he stopped just like that. Find your own example if it's going to help you remember it better, okay? But it's not shock therapy. Now, shock doesn't always work. Again, as I say to some people, and I say to a lot of my clients, so again, you can create your own story with this so that it's you can remember it easier. But I did have a client once who came into me. She was a breast cancer survivor, mother of 2 small children, smoking 8 cigarettes a day, and she was a perfectionist. And she said to me, "What am I doing?" Well, we immediately got it down to the 2 a day because there's always going to be only ever 2 that count if you're only smoking 8. And then she came into me the following week with her list. Okay. And on it, she had when her father had criticized her so much when she was a teenager. That was when she started smoking. So I knew there was a time when she started smoking, and it was a fuck you to her dad, because he was saying how much better her brother was than she was. He would amount to more than she would. So yeah, she rebelled and she started smoking. Now, I could, and I explain this even to my clients as well, I could have just done a smoking cessation in the first session. Fine. And she could have maybe stopped for 3 months, 6 months. However, imagine that she sees her dad, okay? He comes and visits, and then he starts criticizing her children. Well, what's going to be activated? Yes, the poo. Because that hadn't been got rid of. That hadn't been reduced. Again, I'm not magic, I can't take the whole thing away, but we can take the emotional charge out of it. Because if I hadn't got rid of that within 3-6 months, she might have reached for a cigarette, or she'd have done something else to help herself, because that was her lazy default that she did since she was 15. So that's what I mean by shock doesn't always work, but this is why this does. And this is why the eye movements that you will learn, because what I then did the eye movements on that you already know that you're going to be training on that exhale in pain. And then in hypnosis, I was able to grow that part up. And she integrated them back into her. So she had the 2 parts speaking, and she integrated them back. So this is why it's so effective. And yeah, she's a non-smoker. She's a person who does not smoke. So, and then I say, imagine. And again, you can make up your own examples, okay, if it's going to help you understand this easier, or you can use mine. Now, I can't take these off. Imagine that you have a smoker again, just use a smoker. And it's New Year's Eve. He's going to use his willpower. Oh, yes, I'm going to stop smoking. He goes to a party, and say it's mid-January, and his friends are drinking and smoking. Well, he's drinking because he never said he was going to stop doing that. And his friends are saying, come on out, we're having a cigarette. Well, what do you think is going to win? The army of 10% or the army of 90%? Exactly. So the army of 90% wins, because this is really important, because this bit in the middle doesn't know that drinking, smoking, gambling, it doesn't know that the gym might be good or bad for you, that eating anything healthy is good or bad for you. It doesn't know that eating a whole box of candy or cookies is good or bad for you. All this bit wants to do in the middle is to protect your feelings. Protect your feelings. Okay? Because it always has a positive intention. And this bit in the middle will always go to protect your feelings. And that is why people do all of these different behaviors. They would rather do anything than feel that. So always have that one handy as well, because it's helpful. Okay, so we are not our behaviours. I'll spell it the English way. We are not our behaviours. We are our good intention. And our good intention is always going to be to protect our feelings. Now, the parents will understand why their kids might be gaming. They may understand why their brother gambles, or why somebody has affairs or other drugs, or why they could be self-harming, why they could be, I mean, I know it sounds really daft, but it's like, well, how can the inner critical voice be good? How can this be good? We get the below and we start getting curious about it. Okay, how can a panic attack, how can a fear, how can a phobia? Well, actually, it's because when they're busy doing this, they're not doing that. Again, how can an inner critical voice be so mean and start saying that you smell, you're fat, you're ugly, da 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 da, all these things? You're a waste of space, you're procrastinating. Well, actually, it's because it wants more for you, or it wants you to live. It doesn't want you to have a heart attack or a stroke. So it will be mean to you until you hear it, until you listen to it. And that's when we then can downgrade the bully and give them techniques and strategies. You have to get rid of that. Those have to go in order for that to all shrink. Now your clients are also understanding that again, and that we can only manage what we can acknowledge. Sorry, I've drawn over my own diagram. Now, this is what you then give to your client, and they're going, yes. And I say to them, we can only manage what we can acknowledge. Now that you have all of this awareness, now you'll know what you're doing. You'll be able to manage it so much better. That really helps with the whole anger thing. Very interesting. And people love this. And that is what I'd like you to train. Because when people have all of this awareness, when they understand that they're not their behaviors, so you've got children understanding why their parents might have been, so when I say children, you've got teens who are acting out because, say, their parents are into drugs or whatever they're into. Now they go, oh, because they're protecting their feelings. Oh, yeah. And it's because their dad was abusive, da 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 da. And it goes on. And they can see that how trauma can come down through families, and yeah, generational trauma. And it does. And then they can go, oh, I'm going to stop it. And you've got the parents again, they go, oh, okay, right, that's it. And then they start taking ownership. They start to take responsibility. Sometimes I never even see the children, maybe once, but it's like, it's more often the parents I actually end up seeing, because who do I see? Their little children. And I can do that, and I will be showing you how, because we're next bit is going to be learning the eye movements, but we'll probably do some anchoring as well, because I want to show you how you do this with children, because this is, you know, of course, for children as well. But that is the last diagram. Do get that down, and it'll be good fun to see you doing it with each other, and you know, when we're all in a training together, because each and every one of you will have your own way of explaining it with your different stories, or you can use mine. Okay, but I do know that I didn't use Beryl's, I used my own, and I made this my own. But this, I know, is really helpful because we're also explaining this one as well with it. So I do want a lot of those nuances in it. Again, please, questions in the comments, and I will answer them. Okay, so take care. See you on another one. Bye.